in the geographic township of Middleton, Norfolk County, being parts 1 and 2, 37R11451, being part of PIN 501410198. Are there any other additions or changes to the agenda? Okay, seeing none, if I could move her in a seconder for that. Thank you. Councillor Rabbit, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? And that's carried. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? All right, seeing none, moving on to reports of committees today. We have 5 reports of committees under this section of the agenda. So I do understand that Councillor Huffman has requested that resolution number 12 regarding the COVID-19 vaccination policy for Norfolk County from the October 12th, 2021 Council and Committee meeting minutes be pulled for discussion. We will move that on this resolution and adoption of the October 12, 2021 CIC minutes to the staff reports section, just since we anticipate that discussion could be lengthy. Does any other councillor wish to pull any other items? All right, seeing none then, and again, I'll just sort of read those off for you. There's the Budget Committee minutes from October 12th, Public Hearing Committee minutes from October 12th, the Tourism and ACTEV Advisory Board minutes from September 15th, and the Energy Conservation Committee minutes from September 10th. As well, for the Budget Committee minutes from October 12th, the Clerk's Office advised that the following amendment is required to the October 12th, 2021 Budget Committee meeting minutes. And that is in reference to resolution number 2, which is to amend the date within the resolution from October 26th to November 2nd, as the Budget Committee meeting has been rescheduled to that date. So the new motion now will read, it's been moved by Councillor Martin and seconded by Councillor Michelli, that the presentation by Anne Lacaille regarding the fenced-in leash dog-free park in Port Dover be received as information, and that staff report back with supplementary information regarding a fenced-in leash-free dog park in Port Dover at the capital budget meeting on Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021. Are there any other changes to the Budget Committee meeting minutes? All right, in that case, if I could have a motion to approve the minutes as amended. Thank you, Councillor Michelli, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? And that's carried. And then, unless there's any errors or omissions, if I could have a motion to approve the sets of minutes as presented for the Public Hearing Committee minutes from October 6th, the Tourism and ACTEV Advisory Board minutes from September 15th, and the Energy Conservation Committee minutes.
Is now joining.
Is that Councillor Columbus trying to join in?
I joined in, Mayor Chop.
Oh, Councillor Huffman, thanks.
Okay, I can't get in on my computer, so I had to phone in.
Okay, no problem. I'm just going to put you on mute. Is that all right?
Yep.
So with that, a mover and a seconder. And if I just did that, sorry, Councillor Michelli, seconded by Councillor Taylor. Thanks, that threw me off. And all those in favor? That is carried. All right, moving on to approval of the minutes. We have the following regular council minutes before us today. Regular council from September 21st, 2021. Are there any errors or omissions? All right, seeing none then, if I could have a mover and a seconder to approve the minutes as presented. Councillor Van Passen, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Rabbits. All those in favor? And that's carried. First staff report is CD 21-110. That's in regards to the White Garden Suite. And Nicole, I believe that this is your report. If you'd like to go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is an application proposing a temporary use bylaw to permit a garden suite at 329 Thompson Road West. The property is designated and zoned agricultural and is less than an acre in size. Supported by the official plan policy and the PPS, the proposed temporary use bylaw would permit a garden suite for an initial period of 11 years. Following that period, a renewal of the bylaw would be required every 3 years to allow the use for up to 20 years. As you know, garden suites are temporary structures that provide a flexible housing option for residents with a legitimate and justified need to be accommodated in close proximity to a principal dwelling. Only one garden suite is permitted per lot, and they are only permitted in association with a single detached residential dwelling. They are also required to be removed if a legitimate need is no longer existing. In summary, it is staff's professional opinion that the proposed development meets the intent and purpose of the official plan and is consistent with the PPS. Staff therefore recommend approval of this application for temporary use bylaw to permit a garden suite. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Nicole. Questions from council? Okay, seeing none, does somebody wish to move staff's recommendation? Councillor Taylor, thanks. Seconded by Councillor Rabbits. Oh, Councillor Michelle, go ahead.
Thank you. I just maybe just wanted to I think this will be for the clerk, just a correction in the executive summary. It indicates that this was discussed at the Public Hearings Committee on October the 5th, but I believe that correct date is October 6th.
Thank you, Councillor Michelle. I will note that.
Thank you.
All right, so we've got a mover and a seconder for staff's recommendation. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor? That is carried. Next is staff report CD 21-111. This is the Smith subdivision, 28 TPL 202111114 and ZNPL 2021115. And Mohammed, if I'm not mistaken, I think this is your report.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and the Council. This application went through a public hearing on July 6, 2021. The proposal is for a 7-lot of draft plan of subdivision application with a zoning amendment to change the current zoning from agricultural and rural industrial to hamlet residential zone. The technical review has been completed. No major concerns are identified by the staff, and no public comments has been received. Two key issues has been addressed through the conditions of the draft plan of subdivision. One of them is a proper drainage outlet to be approved by the county, which will require a mutual drainage agreement with the county as per Drainage Act, and all associated costs will be responsibility of the applicant. The second issue is the recommendation of the archaeological assessments and any necessary mitigation to be completed by the applicant before the final approval of the subdivision. Staff recommends a holding provision to be placed until the final registration of the subdivision to confirm that all conditions are met. Through Madam Chair, the staff recommends that the zoning bylaw amendment application be approved with the holding and the draft plan of subdivision application be approved with the conditions mentioned in this report. That's everything, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Mohammed. Any questions from council? Councillor Van Andriesch, go ahead.
Thank you. That's a little bit of a question of the municipal drain. You're planning that the planner looks at it, and then we have an engineer that looks at it. And how long does that usually take for a plan of the engineering? Mohammed.
Through Madam Chair to Councillor Van Andriesch. So there is an existing municipal drain. It is an open ditch, which is actually running at the back side of the proposed development. Yeah. So they have to go through a Drainage Act process where they will include these new lots within the the existing drainage that went through at the back side of the property, and that will, when they will do that, they have to actually update the drainage system by constructing a proper drainage at the backside, and that will be done through a Drainage Act, and they already applied for a Drainage Act application, and that will be reviewed by the Development Engineering and Public Works, and once it is done, there will be an agreement with the county to use that drainage for the stormwater runoff for their proposed development.
Okay, and all costs are borne by the applicant.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions from council? Councillor Van Passen, go ahead. Councillor Van Bassen, go ahead. Councillor Michelle, did you have a question as well, or is that from before?
I do, Madam Mayor, thank you. And I, I have a feeling it may be connected to what Councillor Van Passen will ask, but I think it was a good question that Councillor Van Dushi had about the drainage there. I pass by that site fairly frequently, and there is continually water sitting on the proposed development, and I know that this will probably alleviate any concerns that the residents across the road in Walsh might have about that drainage issue. So I'm glad that that was raised and brought up, and Mohammed gave the answer. So I just want to kind of reiterate that there is definitely standing water, and it's there constantly.
Councillor Huffman, I'm just going to check in with you since I can't see you. Did you have any questions while we wait for Councillor Van Bassen? All right, so since Councillor Van Passen did have a question, I'm going to suggest we just take 5 minutes here. I'm going to run in the other room and see how he's doing with getting logged back on.
Kim Huffman.
is now exiting.
Kim Huffman.
is now joining.
Kim Huffman.
Is now exiting.
All right, so we are still experiencing some IT issues. Councillor Columbus still can't get on. Councillor Huffman, I think it would be better if you were on your computer if you're able. So we are going to take a half-an-hour break, and Councillor Columbus is going to drive in. So we'll just we'll finish off once we get Councillor Van Passen back after the break. We'll just finish off with this planning matter, and then we'll go into the resolution from Council and Committee that was pulled on the vaccination policy. So we'll try to aim to be back here 4 o'clock or just thereafter, and we'll give this one more shot with everyone in the building. So Councillor Huffman, that option is open to you as well. If you want to send me a text, we can make sure there's a computer and stuff ready for you if you would like to just drive in here for it. All right, so we'll see everyone back around 4. Thanks. 1-1. And Councillor Van Passen, the floor was yours when we lost you. And sorry, actually, Councillor Van Passen, before you go ahead, Mohammed, I just wanted to make sure you're ready as well.
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to make the comment that I'm glad staff are recommending that we take the cash in lieu of parkland option rather than ending up with another little useless piece of 5% of that area somewhere. And hopefully they could use a little bit of that money to fix up the hall in Walsh, and everybody's going to benefit. So, and I'd be happy to move the staff recommendation at the same time.
Okay, thanks. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Michelle, thank you. And Councillor Huffman, did you have any comments on that file? I didn't know if there was a hand that had gone up. No? Okay. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor? And that is carried. So now we're moving on to the council and committee minutes from October 12th. As noted earlier, staff report CAO 2180 COVID vaccination policy for the Corporation of Norfolk County has been pulled by Councillor Huffman for discussion. Does any councillor wish to pull any other items from that council and committee? All right, seeing none then, Councillor Huffman, if you would like to provide some comments, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend last week's meeting due to being ill. So it was, I have had a chance to rewatch and to read some of the newspaper articles as well. And I just felt it was prudent that some other things were brought to light. And I guess the fact is that municipal government is the most accountable order of government in shaping the lives of everyday people. And as the county is one of the largest employers in the county, I feel it prudent that we set a proper example for our community members. I feel very strongly about this. We have spent the last over a year as a council and as a board of health working on getting the predominantly almost all of our residents who are eligible, age 12 and over, vaccinated. For us to not adhere to this policy as an employer I'm flabbergasted. I can't even imagine why we would choose to do that. We have a very, excuse me, we have a very flexible policy. We're not threatening anyone's employment. They have the opportunity to be tested. And I think that it's preeminent that we set an example for our community. So I would like to revisit this issue.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Huffman. In the meantime, Aaron, I guess since the item has been pulled, and Heidi, are you on the line as well? I think I see you. I'm just thinking, so there was a number of questions that I had asked last week, and we had discussed if somebody did pull the this item that we would sort of come back to this, and you guys were going to work on some answers to some of those questions. So just kind of as a refresher, one of them was whether or not we had an estimate of essential county services that were being currently carried out by unvaccinated individuals, and what we think as staff that the effect on that essential service provision could be if we have upwards of 20% currently that are unvaccinated on our staff, how we think that could impact operations, particularly in areas like fire and water.
So through you to council. So certainly we don't have the exact numbers of unvaccinated staff. We haven't polled or surveyed all the staff. We know that there's a possibility that staff in those essential services may not be vaccinated, and they may choose to not be tested. The policy allows for flexibility so that those that are unvaccinated can still, complete the educational component, they can still do the rapid testing, and they can still come to work. So it's not that we're saying that they can't, it's just that they have to take an additional step. The screening is really an additional, it's a tool, it's a screening tool, and it's another tool in our toolbox to ensure the health and safety of our staff. That being said, it's, members of SLT in those areas that have essential services are working on contingency plans. We've had contingency plans in place for, since the beginning of COVID, when we thought, if we had a large amount of staff, go off of work because they were infected, what would our operations look like? So staff continue contingency plans and those business continuity plans to ensure that we're still meeting the operations of day to day in the workplace.
Okay, thanks, Erin. And then I guess, Heidi, the next couple questions are for you that I had asked that we didn't have any answer, because I'm just curious what data specifically was used in drafting this policy. So how many COVID transmissions occurred while people were at work, and how many outbreaks did we see pre and post vaccine? And then there was the number as well of how much more likely is it that an unvaccinated rather than a vaccinated person is carrying COVID-19?
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Through you to council. In terms of outbreaks in the workplace, I will let Ms. Anderson speak to that. But in terms of the data related to the risk of transmission among vaccinated versus unvaccinated individuals, our epidemiologist, Dr. Catherine Bishop-Williams, has gathered some information for us. I will start by saying that the science on COVID-19 transmission is live, meaning that because this is a new disease, it is changing all of the time. It's not a disease that we have decades of history with, that we know exactly how it behaves. So this is information that she has gathered from Public Health Ontario and the Centre of Disease Control. So breakthrough cases, those that occur among individuals who have received 2 doses of the COVID-19 vaccine greater than 2 weeks, account for only 2.4% of cases in Ontario since December 2020. And some of these 2.4% of cases are asymptomatic. So they've been identified only through random testing, routine testing, or post-exposure testing. The data do show
Heidi,
that...
sorry to interrupt you. Can I just ask a question on that, though? Is one of the challenges not with that data is the fact that most people that are vaccinated and are asymptomatic are actually not getting tested for COVID any longer.
So that is correct, Mayor Chop. They are getting tested if they have had an exposure to COVID or if they develop symptoms. And that is certainly another piece of information to consider, is that fully vaccinated people in the workplace, if they have an exposure to COVID-19, they are no longer required to quarantine. So the public health guidance around related to fully vaccinated individuals who have an exposure to COVID, they don't have to quarantine. They need to monitor for signs and symptoms, and are encouraged to get tested. So as opposed to unvaccinated individuals who do need to quarantine, and that could also have an impact on the workplace. So the information is we are sharing that we believe that, and again, the science is live on COVID-19, but we believe that higher vaccination coverage rates among staff would decrease the likelihood of transmission in the workplace. A vaccinated staff member protects themselves from the likelihood of a symptomatic infection and therefore protects their colleagues with reduced likelihood of transmission. And fully vaccinated staff are not required to self-isolate in their home. So this could contribute to lower absentee rates due to the necessity to quarantine if staff were unvaccinated.
That may be true, or we could also lose a portion of our workforce who chooses that they don't want to pay for these tests, but there still isn't an actual, I'm just curious what the data is that was used to formulate this policy. So still, what is the, how much more likely is it that an unvaccinated versus a vaccinated person is carrying COVID-19? Because right now I can do the numbers with 20 cases in all of Norfolk County. or in Haldeman, Norfolk, rather, I should say, that's a 1 in 5,000 residents that have an active case. So that's a 1 in 5,000 chance that any particular coworker has COVID-19. So what's the risk that that person then transmits to a close contact? Again, I struggle because I can't pass a policy that is because everybody else has done it when I'm not actually being given data by staff as to the reasons why this policy was drafted. When, you know, it is this council that fought with our MOH for 1.5 years, and some even campaigned in the Ward 2 election on the fact that they wanted the rules to be the same as the provincial and the federal rules for migrant workers, not less stringent, not more stringent. They wanted consistency. And so now the problem with this policy is it is not consistent across the province. And we're in fact seeing, you know, the Premier sort of go back on some of the things that he said, because these challenges in the workforce, more than people being off in quarantine, there are bigger challenges with losing staff members that are refusing to participate in these programs, which are coming at a cost to them. And, you know, I know we can sit here as council and maybe it is the right answer. I don't know. But there is certainly no international consensus. There's no consensus across this country that this is the right thing to do. And there's no consensus even within the province, because again, everyone has done it differently. And if the Premier believed that this was the solution, then it should have been applied equally everywhere. And I just think for us to make a decision that impacts people's lives and has the potential to shape the future of this country, that needs to be approached a little bit more humbly and not this way of taking this as an argument that we absolutely, I don't know the answer, and I don't think that anybody out on staff or on council has the answer either, or else again we would all be doing the same thing. So I just want to better understand what the specific data is that staff use to formulate, you know, the policy and to make this decision to bring this to council. Because right now, with 1 in 5,000, 1 in 5,000 chance that you have COVID in Haldeman, Norfolk, I think that works out to a 1 in 30 million chance, if my math is correct, that a vaccinated municipal employee would get a severe case of COVID from any particular coworker. And I can walk you through that whole math, and you can criticize it if you want, but.
So Mayor,
so do you, unless you have a different number, what is the chance then, based on the numbers that are out there, that you believe, because I know how I've worked it out, that you believe that one employee is going to give, an unvaccinated employee is going to give a vaccinated employee COVID-19 and have it also be a severe case?
So Mayor Chup, the best information that I can provide to you today is the data that came from our epidemiologist that says that since December 2020 in Ontario, only 2.4% of the cases of COVID have been breakthrough cases, meaning that they are among those who have been fully vaccinated. Because the science on this is live, I cannot say that there is an X percentage of chance of transmission versus a Y percentage of chance of transmission, and certainly I am not going to challenge your math. But this is the best data that I have tonight.
I think the numbers that I've found in most literature is you're looking at about 3 to 4 times increase in the likelihood. But again, when you take that 3 to 4 times increase in the likelihood and spread it over our population, that doesn't have anything significant to distinguish us from the rest of the province going on right now. In fact, you know, we're performing better than other areas. That I think it's a significant infringement on our employees who have been loyal over this period of time. But Councillor Martin, I'll go to you, and then Councillor Van Den Riesen and Councillor Huffman.
Thanks, Mayor Chop. Through you, I guess I just wanted to make a comment on one of your comments. With the roughly 20 people living in Haldeman, Norfolk, with the case right now, the 1 in 5, I think that it's important that does not take into account our employees who don't live in our community. That doesn't take into account their partners, their spouses, their kids, and their interactions if they're living out of our community. So if someone's coming in from the GTA to work, it is another thing we can do to protect our staff. And I just really struggle with the concept that we would spend our time and our energy and our resources and taxpayers' money on a vaccination program where, you know, Chief Page went out for months to encourage vaccinations, and then we wouldn't follow through with our own staff, given that this policy allows for flexibility in a testing element if they don't wish to be vaccinated. So I thank Councillor Huffman for pulling it, and I will continue to support the policy. Thank you.
Councillor Van Den Rishi, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, I too will be supporting this. I still feel that we cannot put those people at risk that did the right thing and got vaccinated and have to share an office space with someone who chose not to. I don't think it's fair to that employee, because they now are putting themselves at risk, their families at risk. And so I still feel it's important that they are able to feel comfortable in the workplace knowing that others are vaccinated. And as far as your numbers go, let me tell you that it is very, very slim chances of you winning the lottery. But at the end of the day, one person still wins the lottery. So it just tells you that it can happen. And we cannot take that risk. It is not fair to our employees. And this is a very, very flexible motion that we are putting forth. And we have to maintain those high standards. We have to set an example. I feel that it's very, very important. It's been brought to us by our staff, and I think it's something that we can do. And it's not infringing on anyone's rights as far as I'm concerned, but that's my opinion. But I still feel it's important that we have a policy in place. Others have a policy in place. And yes, I did count on the very fact that we should be treated the same. And if another municipality has it and other municipalities have it, that they have this in place, we should too.
Okay, just for clarification, there is no consistent policy across the province right now, and there are municipalities that don't have a policy either. But one question I just want to ask you, Councillor Van Den Rishi, because last week you focused a lot on the liability if a county employee went to somebody's home. Have you considered the liability on the part of the county if somebody goes and doesn't want to pay out of their own pocket, because that's their salary that they have to pay for their mortgage and pay to put food on the table, if they choose not to participate in that program and they feel that they've been coerced into getting a vaccine and that person ends up falling ill from the vaccine, which has happened, have you considered the liability on that side?
It's a risk, I suppose we'd have to assume. But at the end of the day, as far as the cost of rapid testing, I think rapid testing could be the test that we could be using, and that is not an expensive test.
Twice a week for some undefined period of time, because you have also not set a time limit on this policy. It's just blanket, it's there in existence for forever. So I do think that can actually add up for people over a period of time. But
you can weigh whatever you say both ways.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Through you, I guess my question would be, why have we spent the past year encouraging our community and our residents to get vaccinated? It's again, the word flabbergasted just comes to mind. When we're looking at medical advice, and we have a Canadian Medical Officer of Health, very simply, COVID vaccines protect against serious illness. The more people fully vaccinated, the greater the impact to slow the spread. We're moving into indoors now with the fall and winter, and they're very clearly saying, sleeves up, get vaccinated, keep up with your hand washing, your masking, and your distancing, and listen up, follow your local public health advice. This is what the Canadian Medical Officer of Health is telling individuals to do. We are responsible for the individuals in our community. And I don't know why the term loyalty comes in, the employees who have been loyal. That's an irrelevant thing. Everyone has been loyal throughout this pandemic. So because they've chosen not to get a vaccine, we're going to we're going to say that they're more loyal or less loyal. Like that logic doesn't even make any sense to me. The fact is, the bottom line is if we weren't going to do this and we don't value that of our employees, why have we spent the last year with Chief Page and the health unit and working as a Board of Health to get people vaccinated?
If I can just respond to that, because I feel like some of that was directed at me, but I think that you are 100% correct that the vaccine absolutely protects against serious illness. I think there's concrete data to show that. In fact, that number is about 97%. But unlike the mask debate that we had at the time, I wear a mask to protect you, you wear a mask to protect me. Getting a vaccine is something that protects yourself. And I am double vaccinated, and I do agree that people should get vaccinated. My concern with this is, what is the trajectory that we set into the future if we are taking this position now? I don't have kids, so I don't have to worry about 40, 50 years from now. I'll be dead and gone. But I think that this sets a dangerous precedent in society when we have seen, last week I asked a series of questions about the numbers that are being used, and not one of our staff could answer what those numbers were at the time, which leads me to believe that that policy was drafted. And in fact, I heard the words from staff, because other municipalities are doing it. The Premier has access to the Chief Medical Officer of Health and all of the data available to him. And if he wanted to mandate that equally across municipalities, he could have done so in the way that he did for workers in congregate settings. But there is a different risk profile transmission between people working in congregate settings and your roads crew worker that is outside. So it's, again, I'm not saying it's wrong, Councillor Huffman. I'm just saying to sit there and it's not one way or another. I think everybody has valid points with it. It concerns me to just pass something like this so sort of flippantly when it really does affect people's lives. That's all.
Okay, and my response to that is that it's not flippantly. I've done a lot of thought about this. And the other thing is when we talk about the Premier, there's been numerous times through this pandemic that you haven't agreed with the Premier. Now all of a sudden we're going to go by what the Premier says. So you got to decide what side of the fence you're on that one.
Well, I think I would say that to council. You can't suck and blow with the migrant workers piece. Everybody wanted just what the province and the federal government had, and we attacked our staff for bringing that forward.
You keep saying people attacked staff. No one attacked anybody. And just because you're the one who stood up and spoke on behalf of the Board of Health saying that we were all going to resign, no one consented to that. We didn't say we were all going to resign. That was you speaking out as the chair of the Board of Health, putting words into our mouths. So that wasn't fair either. And some of the data that you're coming up with, we have a health unit, we have an epidemiologist for a reason. So this is the advice that we're getting from our health unit.
Councillor Huffman, that was from closed session. That part was discussed, and we as the board did discuss it, and it was to be able to get a meeting with the Chief Medical Officer of Health at the time. But I'm going to move on with the meeting. Councillor Columbus, go ahead.
Yes, point of order, Madam Mayor. I don't think you're to be debating with the councillors at this time. You should have handed the chair over to Councillor Van Passen several minutes ago.
You're right. I should have.
So why do you continue to do it?
You don't have a motion on the floor, and so that's
now's the time. Back and forth. You should not be doing that.
Councillor Columbus, I've just respected your point of order. I completely agree. Now,
I will make my comment now. I noticed the clerk had her hand up. I believe she was going to probably mention the same thing from what I saw. I see it's down now. But anyway.
Okay, so let's get a motion.
My thinking on this is when I hear that cancer surgeries are being delayed because hospital beds are occupied primarily by
Councillor Columbus, you two are debating without a motion on the floor, and so we will follow procedure. I agree with you. I'd like you to put the motion on the floor, and then we'll carry on with debate at this point in time, unless there's a question for staff.
Well, thank you for cutting me off.
Okay, I'm allowing you to put the motion on the floor, and I'm giving you the
I haven't got the paperwork in front of me. I had to rush here behind 2 school buses and 2 motorcycle cops, so I couldn't speed to get here.
Well, it's not my fault you couldn't remember your password. But,
okay, I hope somebody else puts the motion on the floor, then I can support it.
And then I will get back to you. Councillor Van Rishi, would you like to move the motion?
What I don't understand, first, a question. Why is it that we were all allowed to make our opinion, and then when someone else comes up to make an opinion, you cut them off? I don't understand.
The clerk actually just sent me a message about the same thing, and I am agreeing with you, and I agreed with the clerk. And so I'm asking for the motion to be put on the floor, and then we will carry on with the debate. I'm in full agreement.
Put the motion on the floor.
So the motion is to move staff's policy as presented in last week's agenda.
Yes, it is.
Great. Seconded by Councillor Huffman. And Councillor Vanden Riche, since you're the mover of the motion, I'm going to come back to you first if you would like to have your first opportunity to speak to it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Council, I will be supporting this motion. This motion gives much flexibility to our staff. It's reasonable and it is accountable. For me, it is important that staff come to work feeling safe. And if they feel safe that the person beside them is vaccinated, fine. Or they feel safe that the person beside them is not vaccinated, but yet has been tested, they will feel comfortable in doing their work. I don't want people staying home or staying away from work because of fear of what can happen to them, their family, or their partners. So I am in very much favor of this very flexible motion.
Okay, Councillor Columbus, I'm going to come back over to you. Unless Councillor Huffman, you want to take this opportunity to speak to it as the seconder, and then if not, I'll come back to you again.
Yeah, no, I just want to say that it's a very flexible policy. It's very respectful of everyone's needs. And I think, again, spending the last year with working on this and working on getting our community vaccinated is that it's the least that we can do for our employees to feel safe coming to work. We're getting advice from the Ontario Medical Officer of Health that people were only supposed to be inside with people who were double vaccinated to celebrate Thanksgiving with your own family. So why would we want employees who are unvaccinated in the same spaces as employees who are vaccinated, not knowing what their status is in terms of whether they're not. So I feel very strongly about this, and obviously I support it as I second it. Thank you.
Councillor Columbus, go ahead.
Yes, I too will be supporting the motion as presented. And I gave you my reasons. When I hear of cancer surgeries being delayed because hospital beds are being occupied by COVID patients, primarily the unvaccinated, I can't help but support this this motion.
Okay, Councillor Van Passen.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I will not be supporting the motion on the floor for more or less the same reasons I laid out last week. That you know, what is it that we know down here that's different than the rest of the province? If the experts in Ottawa and Toronto, with the data they have and the expertise they have, they set policies for congregate settings. They set them where it's required. I don't see the need to go and be up and beyond that. And I question some of these statistics because, you know, every day the province announces how many new cases there are. And, you know, as I pulled these off on break, 32% of the cases today are from fully vaccinated people, 53% are from unvaccinated people. And again, people that are fully vaccinated can still get COVID, can still spread COVID. I think somebody's already made the comment that, you know, we wore the mask to protect others. Now, being unvaccinated, the only risk you're putting you're putting the risk to yourself, not anyone else, because everybody else can do the same thing. I just don't see the need for it. And technically, you know, there's a need for a province to lay out the rules of the game because there's so much overlapping legislation that's controlled by the province that we would be in violation of, you know, the Occupational Health and Safety Act as any prescribed medical surveillance, which is what the testing would be, that the employer pays the cost and they do it on company time, and workers are not required to participate unless they consent to. You flip to the Health Information and Protection Act. nobody has to release their medical information unless they consent to, and anybody who forces them to do that is in violation of the law, and any organization who endorses that, the directors and officers of that corporation are also personally liable for any failures to follow the rules. This is why it should be done at a provincial level, because they can adjust the rest of the provincial legislation to make it fit accordingly. You know, one of the other latest recommendations out of the province is anybody who has already had COVID should not be doing the testing. So what do we do if we have employees who's already had COVID? They can't do the antigen testing twice a week like we are required under this policy, and I don't see any loophole in them as an out for that. So are they just automatically lose their job just because they're not allowed to do the testing anymore? Again, that's why it should be led by the province. It should be one rule across the board. If it's that important, they would have implemented already, as they did in the congregate settings of long-term care facilities and health facilities. So I will not be supporting the motion on the floor, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Van Passen. Councillor Martin, and then Councillor Rabbits, and then Councillor Michelle.
Thanks, Mayor Chop. Through you to everyone. I am in support of the motion. I know a lot of the work that we do compares other municipalities to what we're doing. We talk about it with property taxes. We talk about it with water bills. We talk about it with staffing models and operation models. While this is considerably different, I really just reject the narrative that we are trailblazing all of a sudden and being, you know, one of 5 municipalities to do that. If that was true, I would still be comfortable in supporting this policy, but I do not believe that to be true whatsoever. And again, for I believe the 3rd time, I really want to correct some information here where masks protect you and so on. Vaccinations do protect other people, hence why we up as more people are becoming vaccinated. Because if I'm vaccinated, I get COVID, my body has the ability to fight it off a lot faster, a lot better than someone who's unvaccinated, and therefore I'm not spreading it. So again, in support of the motion. Thank you very much.
Councillor Rabbits, go ahead.
Thank you, and through you, I'm speaking against the motion. I do support vaccinations and also rapid testing for those that may be symptomatic or may not be experiencing symptoms. But I worry that we are rushing to pass this policy, and I don't have answers to some lingering questions. Chief among them being information back from our bargaining units. I don't believe we've gotten a response from all of our bargaining units. That worries me. I don't fully understand the response that we have had to date from each of those units, and really those conversations should be held in closed session as they are labor relations matters. I thought we would have been apprised of that update before approving such a policy. I worry that we could perhaps get in trouble with some of our unionized and collective bargaining groups by passing this bylaw, and only to find out that there are grievances filed, or we do have some liability and some complications arising thereafter. Her worship has made reference to fire and water, but I also think about all the different services. We're a very complex organization, and I don't fully understand how those services could be impacted, whether they be essential or non-essential services that we provide to our community. So it's definitely a concern for me. I am hearing from other councillors concerned about the cost, and I haven't heard enough information about the cost. I believe a rapid test is about $40. I think that if we are passing this policy, it should be a well thought out one, and we should cover who's bearing that cost. I don't think it should be on our employees and our staff. And I want to know what that dollar figure would be, where the money would come from. And I think it should be funded from the tax levy, or if we have a pool, if we can apply for extraordinary funding covering a policy like this, that would be something that isn't budgeted for, paying for the tests for employees who choose to participate in the program, though don't choose to receive their vaccine. So I have at least 2 lingering concerns those being costs, those being staffing, hearing back from our bargaining agents. Their silence is concerning. And I imagine we're still promptly returning all of their emails on a number of different topics. I'm very much against coercion. And, you know, if we can't convince those people who have chosen not to be vaccinated, you know, if they're not listening to their own parents, their mothers, their friends, their counselor, they're not listening to medical professionals, I don't see how coercing them is going to be that final stick that's going to convince them to take the vaccine, if that is in fact the end goal here. I hope that it is. But I would like to be more persuasive, and I'd actually rather lean on education and perhaps look at even incentivizing. I wouldn't be against paying a healthcare benefit for individuals to be vaccinated, whether they have the jab now or they choose to take it later. Many organizations are choosing to pay a healthcare benefit to incentivize their employees to be vaccinated, rather than relying on strictly coercion, talking about their employment agreement, asking them to pay money out of pocket in order to participate fully in their workplace. So I haven't heard a lot of language about education, incentivizing, budgeting for these costs. Instead, all I'm hearing is vaccine mandate, coercion, and possibly separations of employment. It's really concerning for me as a human resources professional and someone that is pro-vaccine, someone that is pro-testing. So I'm worried about the unintended consequences. And if we're comfortable with having a portion of our population or portion of our workforce essentially being left out in the cold or turned away by this, you know, I don't feel that that's being very empathetic or compassionate. I think we should be approaching those that are vaccine hesitant from a place of respect. I think that we should be sympathetic and understanding and not starting the conversation out with an argument and with a penalty. I don't think it's right, and that's why I'm not supporting this policy.
Thanks, Councillor Rabbits, for those comments. Councillor Michelle, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I really think that Councillor Rabbits itemized pretty much every concern or question that I was going to ask. Chief among them is my main concern that I have not gotten an answer to yet is I would like to get some feedback from our bargaining units because I think that they ultimately will play a huge role in the actual implementation of this policy. And so until I hear really from them and what their position is, I don't think I can support this motion at this time because of the, you know, I would hate for us, as Councillor Rabbits mentioned, I don't want to put us in a position where we end up antagonizing various people, whether they are vaccinated or not vaccinated, with this attempt at what really is going to be coercion. And again, I don't want us to spend perhaps the next weeks and months dealing with grievances launched by our labor unions on a policy that perhaps we should have had more information on in the first place. I also was hoping that we would get more actual concrete data from our staff, but it appears as though that has not materialized. So I'm not able to support this motion at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Michelle. Does anybody wish to speak for a second occasion? Councillor Martin, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Chop. I don't actually wish to speak. I just wonder if Erin can actually provide any comments. I think she did speak briefly to unions last week, and I also see Paula is on the line here and wondered if she could speak to that as well, because I believe that there was some early discussion months ago with Paula on that.
I believe the response was that only the one that ONA had provided communications, but I don't think anything has been received from QP. But Paula or Erin, I'll let you address that.
Thank you. Through the mayor to Councillor Martin. Yes, as part of our policy review, we sent the this policy to our friends at ONA and to QP. We have other bargaining units in the corporation. However, they are within Norview Lodge and Paramedic Services, which this policy does not apply. So we didn't feel the need to send it off to them. They're governed by legislation. So in the drafting of this policy, we did send it off to ONA and CUPE. We heard back from ONA right away, and they provided us with lots of feedback that we did amend our policy based on their feedback. We did send it at the same time to our friends at CUPE. We have not heard back from them, but I will say that Haldimand County, our CUPE local is the same local that's in Haldimand County, local 4700. Haldimand County has passed their vaccine policy, and we've not heard from our friends in Haldimand about any issues related to grievances from that local.
Councillor Hoffman, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Mayor Chop. Is Paula on the line? That was just my other question.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. I am on the line. I'm sorry, I'm just not clear what the question was through the chair to Councillor Martin. What was the particular question?
Thanks, Paula. Chop to you, Paula. We kind of got, I guess last week we had some discussion about liability, and now we're talking about grievances. I didn't know if you had anything you could add from a union perspective, or if you have read anything from a legal perspective that discusses unions and vaccination policies, if you have done any research on that. And if not, I apologize for putting you on the spot.
That's okay. I can't say I've done any independent research. I did attend a webinar in which questions around liability were raised, but to be honest, they were raised in the other direction, primarily in the context of failure to put into place a policy risks increase to the employer, primarily under OSHA, where we are obligated to provide a safe workplace and to use all the tools available to us in doing so. There was not a great deal of discussion in that webinar the other way. This is not to say, and I don't want to suggest to anyone that it may not happen or that people may not raise grievances. It just wasn't the focus of that particular discussion, and I have not otherwise done any independent work on it.
Okay.
Councillor Hoffman, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. So I just wanted to kind of summarize, I guess, from my end, is that we're hearing from our HR professional that there's been feedback from ONA that there's been no issue regarding the local for CUPE that we share with Haldimand County. So they're in terms of the arguments that some councillors may have that they're worried about the union piece, I would hope that that would address them. And when we're also talking about I kind of resent the word coercion. That makes me feel like over the last year and a half that we've basically coerced all of our citizens in the county to have a vaccine. So I think we need to be careful with some of the words that we're using. And I guess simply is that we're, again, going along with what Paula had said, is that we need to be careful as to not providing our employees with a safe environment. And I think that all of the questions that the other councillors had have been answered in full, and I choose to support our experts in these opinions. So again, I will be supporting this motion.
Okay, I just want to provide clarification though for what our staff said. Aaron, can you provide, are you saying that you believe then, because we have not heard since in the couple of weeks since Haldimand passed a policy, that CUPE is supportive of this policy? Because that's not what I'm hearing. I'm just hearing that a grievance has not yet, as of yet, been filed, and that CUPE has specifically not responded to your email that you had sent them.
Through the mayor, correct. The CUPE has not responded, yay or nay, regarding our specific policy. They have not provided us feedback when we've asked for feedback. But I will reiterate that our policy is more lenient and more flexible than the policy in Haldimand County, and that supports that same local.
And what is the increased flexibility? Because Haldimand's more stringent in the context of congregate settings with the long-term care workers, but that has now obviously been addressed by the province. So that would supersede what had gone on in the division of their policy. In the context of their general employees, I believe it's the same, is it not?
Through the mayor, through you. Yes, like that is correct. They put their policies were for their paramedics and their long-term were more stringent than ours. We chose to exclude that and follow policies. So for the general staff, they do have rapid testing.
Okay, but the reason ours has been excluded now is because that is now also covered by the province, as it is for Haldeman. But in the context of this discussion, which strictly applies to county employees outside of those areas, it is the same policy that was passed there. Yes, okay, is there any further discussion? Remember, second time. Teresa, maybe we'll take a recorded vote on the matter.
Sorry, through the chair. Okay, so the motion, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So the motion on the floor is that Portseo Community Norfolk County vaccination policy received this information and that the Norfolk County vaccination policy attached to this report be adopted effective. I'd like to change that to October 19th, but that's okay. That was an error that was picked up last week, 2021. Moved by Councillor Vanden Drieschie, seconded by Councillor Huffman. Recorded vote has been requested by Mayor Chow. Councillor Martin.
I am in support of the motion. That's a yes, but that is today's date. Logistically, does that make sense for our staff?
So that would be a question for Aaron, but the date in the original motion was the 18th, so I just moved it to the council meeting.
I believe there's time for them. There's a transition period.
Okay. That's okay. Yes, in support. Yes.
Okay, Councillor Michelle.
I'm sorry, Madam Clerk, are you asking me?
I'm asking if you're in favor of the motion.
Okay, I just wasn't sure if that was my name. It was garbled when it came out. My vote is yes. No, I'm sorry, Madam Chair. My vote is no.
Councillor Columbus.
Yes.
Councillor Van Passen.
No.
Councillor Rabbits.
No.
Councillor Vanden Drieschie.
Yes.
Councillor Taylor.
No.
Councillor Huffman.
Yes.
Mayor Chop.
No.
The motion is defeated on a vote of 5-4.
Thanks, Teresa. Okay, moving on now. I think we're over to our bylaws. I guess the only comments I would have to make, though, I think that everybody on council is very much supportive of vaccination, of our staff getting vaccinated, and hopefully maybe through our next Board of Health meeting, Heidi, we might be able to see, some ideas on perhaps education and how we might be able to start encouraging some of those staff members here in Norfolk County that have not been vaccinated to protect themselves moving forward throughout the winter months here. So next item on the agenda is our bylaws, and is there any member of council that wishes to speak to any of the bylaws? Go ahead.
Actually, no, can I just ask a question based on your last comment there? So we have no guarantee when we go back into chambers that everyone sitting around the council table is vaccinated?
There's no guarantee that everyone sitting around the council table is vaccinated, no.
Well, that's very disappointing.
I think from my understanding, everyone on council is double vaccinated. I'm not sure if there's anyone that isn't, but Teresa, go ahead.
Through the mayor, sorry. I just wanted to say that we do need a motion to approve the remainder of the council and committee.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. I skipped ahead there.
I'm double vaccinated for transparency.
I'm double vaccinated.
I am proud of it.
As am I.
And I am too.
Anyone else?
I'm also.
I will. Anybody can take me out to dinner at some fine dining establishment in Norfolk County, and you will find out. I'll leave that a challenge for you.
So looks like we've got a full council double vaccinated. I see Councillor Taylor nodding his head as well. Okay, so my apologies, Teresa. I guess the final motion then in terms of the council and committee minutes from October 12th would be that the council and committee meeting minutes of October 12th be approved as amended with resolution at 12. If I could have a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Rabbits. All those in favor? That is carried. Does any member wish to push or to pull any of the bylaws before us? All right, seeing none, if I could have a mover to approve the following bylaws. It's bylaw 28Z 2021, bylaw 29Z 2021 inclusive, bylaws 2021-124 to 2021-129 inclusive, and bylaw 131. And that the bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and affixed with the corporate seal. Mover and seconder, Councillor Van Rishi, thank you. Sorry.
I have a question over the bylaw that was introduced today.
Okay, so in the future, I just asked at the beginning if you wanted to pull any, so that's fine. I'll let you speak it now.
I apologize. I was looking at my document and I didn't realize that you had, that I did realize it was added, but I forgot it already. So anyway, I'd like that one pulled.
Which one is that, sorry?
The one on closing on the road on Talbot.
Do you have a number for me?
Okay, I'll look it right up. Here we go.
Through the mayor, that would be 2021-131.
131, yep.
Okay, so the list as I just read it, that one excluded. If I could have a mover and a seconder to approve those. Councillor Shelley, seconded by Councillor Rabbits. All those in favor? That is carried. And go ahead, Councillor Van Rishi on 131.
It's more or less, thank you, your worship, through you to our staff. This motion to close this road, can I get a little bit of explanation why? And because I look it up and I don't understand when this came about. Who's got info?
Through the mayor, at the bottom of the bylaw, I would have to ask corporate services to speak to this, but it looks like this was brought about and perhaps approved to staff report CS 2123 or CS 2144.
My question is to what avail? What is the reasoning, if staff could give me a reason why we're closing it? Oh, there's some.
Thank you. Through Mayor Chop to Councillor Van Rishi. I just need to pull up the report. Lydia is not on the call this evening, but this is related to, I believe, a development in Delhi that council considered for a road closure. But I can pull up the specifics for you, but it will take me a moment.
Councillor Columbus, do you have a little bit of background on that one? I can remember most of the details.
Madam Mayor, I do not recall that report. There must be a good reason for closing it, but I'm just trying to figure in my mind myself where it's at.
Yeah, me too.
While we're waiting, is everyone having email trouble? Is that what the problem was with getting logged on today? I recall an email about changes, but my password's not due for, is that just me?
No, my password's no longer being accepted.
Okay, that was that email we received earlier today then, so that's probably why everyone had trouble logging on.
Mayor Chop, if I may, I do have the report pulled up. So I can provide a quick overview of it through you to Councillor Vanden Drieschie's question. So report number CS 2144 was presented to the council meeting of July 20th. It was in follow-up to a staff report, CS 2123, that was heard at the Public Hearing Committee of April 7th, 2021. And it is to declare the portions of a number of county road allowance applications surplus to municipal needs, and establish the valuations to the lands, and then authorize the conveyance of the lands. So all of the information has been returned from the applicants, and the bylaw is before council to finalize these closures and conveyances. And I'll just, to recap, the detailed requests were from Jared Smith, Beth Farms, Brian DeHoogie, John DeWitt, Brad Rawlings, Howard Butler, Kim Smith, and Magloss Farms for a number of different road allowances.
Okay, I got it. I know now where it is. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so then if I could have a mover to pass bylaw 2021-131 and a seconder. Councillor Van Passen, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? And that's carried. Next, we have one motion on the agenda today that was submitted by Councillor Taylor that's outlined on page 160 regarding the cost of garbage collection by the Downtown Simcoe BIA. And Councillor Taylor, I will turn the floor over to you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So through you, the BIA has been providing several forms of waste removal in the core, particularly with the anonymous dumping, which occurs. It should be the county's responsibility, as we do have that, we have been providing that service. However, the BIA has found a faster, cheaper alternative to the service that the county was providing. So we have been going with that on the BIA for the last almost a year now, I think. It's a number of months anyway. We're getting to that point. So somewhere between what the county would have paid for this service had the BIA not been providing it and what the BIA is providing, there's got to be a reasonable figure that the county can provide to the BIA in the form of a grant, something that will just reoccur so that we can keep going on with this service until it's not needed anymore. So I want to provide the opportunity for staff to sit down with representatives from the BIA to come out with what that figure should be, to then further provide it to Budget Committee when those discussions come up.
Okay, so the motion, Councillor Taylor, if you'd like me to read it for you, was whereas the Downtown Simcoe BIA has efficiently been providing waste removal services in the downtown core, therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to work with the BIA to present a figure to Budget Committee in regards to a grant to assist with these services. Sound good? Councillor Ravitz, are you seconding that? Would you like to speak to it as well?
I would, thank you. So in support of the BIA, and Councillor Taylor has laid it out pretty well there with the two letters. You know, the only thing really in addition that I would supplement is there is a large amount of residential waste that is collected. We are a business improvement area. We do want to encourage folks to reside in downtown, and I think that leads to a more vibrant downtown when you have people living and working, providing a sense of community. It's just the fact that a lot of the units are overpopulated. We don't have proper bins or disposal units. Many of our areas that are dedicated to commercial enterprise, they're filled with residential waste. We're providing the service at a better cost than could be provided through the county. And it's sort of just come to a head where there's a better way of doing things in terms of the money flow. We hate just to increase our levy. The BI levy is there to support the business community and those commercial enterprises. We feel there's a bit of a drain occurring with the residential uses. We're basically providing a service like you would find in a subdivision, only it's not coinciding with garbage day. And so, you know, there's been a lot of frustration. We've had special cleanup events. There's some other ancillary costs that have been borne that haven't been captured in this motion in a desperate attempt to keep the streets clean in downtown. And we've spoken with staff on some potential solutions. Ultimately, we arrived at bringing it to Budget Committee. So I'm really hoping that you will support the motion, at least to have the discussion. Perhaps it's not the full figure of the cost, but I think it'd be really worthwhile to hear from those stakeholders in a budget context so that we can offer a superior service to our downtown core here in Simcoe. So thank you for that opportunity to speak.
Councillor Columbus, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And we had the same problem in the town of Delhi, the business district, for quite some time. And what the staff ended up doing was they distributed letters to all the business people and all the apartment dwellers in that particular postal code area so that they could straighten this out, not to put their garbage out like the night before so the raccoons and dogs and everything else can get into it. And so it doesn't sit there all week before the truck comes. So that seemed to work pretty effectively. And I just wonder, has the Simcoe BIA attempted to do that, to send letters to the postal code in the downtown area to make sure that the garbage is not put out before it's supposed to be put out? And I know at the end of the month, the end of the month when tenants are moving out, that's when you see the couches and Chesterfields and everything else. So if you can answer that, whether the BIA of Simcoe has looked into that.
If I may, Madam Mayor, we haven't sent out letters, but we have done postings on doors. We have posted on particularly frequent offender areas. The anonymous dumping is where the real cost comes in that we're looking to hopefully get some supplement on, which when Norfolk Disposal is called to pick up, the toilet or the couch that's been left out, it's $100 to the county, where the BIA has been providing that service at a much, much more reasonable rate.
Thank you.
Councillor Van Passen, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think Councillor Taylor just answered part of my question, that there is a county contract in place for those callbacks, the anonymous garbage dumping and all that. But the current BIA is trying to, how do I say, kick it up a notch in Simcoe and clean it up and make it better and make it more inviting. So they've hired a separate contractor to try to get ahead of the game, and you're asking for a little bit of a grant to help subsidize that over and above what you're already getting in the BIA fee. So there is another contract with the county, and you're just supplementing that or replacing that, right?
Do you want to provide any more comment?
Essentially, yeah. I mean, it's as opposed to doing it, each stop that they do, it's $100. We've got it a flat fee plus a little bit to help solve that problem, do it a little quicker. I mean, with that budget line item, I believe downtown Simcoe did eat up most of that budget line about halfway through the year. So we've been able to provide it at a cheaper rate, quicker, those sorts of things. And now just instead of saying, you know what, we tried and back to the county for $100 a pop, let's try and get a little bit of help with those costs and keep doing it the way we've been doing it here.
Councillor Hoffman, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Through you to Councillor Taylor. I guess my question would be, why has it been $100 a pop when we have a program through Norfolk County where residents can call in for $25, items can be picked up? And is the arrangement that the BIA made, is it any cheaper than the $25 a pop? Like, I can't see it being much less than that. So we already have a program in place. So just wondering why we're not utilizing the program that we have.
This is specifically referring to anonymous dumping. All of a sudden there's a couch out on your property. If you should not be responsible for that, nor have people been. There's been a number you call into the county, and the county sends the disposal, Norfolk Disposal, to come pick it up on an off hour. We're specifically talking about that anonymous dumping aspect of it. It's not, this garbage doesn't belong to one in particular person. It's just been on the sidewalk at a time. So you call Norfolk Disposal, you call the county sends Norfolk Disposal, and that fee is what costs $100. That's where, if you're out, if there's a couch out in a ditch somewhere.
No, I understand that. So I'm just saying, is there no way to tie the two programs together?
That can be, I feel like when staff sits down with the BIA to discuss this, that'd be an alternative. And I'm trying to provide staff the opportunity here to sit down and work with and come up with a reasonable approach.
Okay, well, like I said, people are just starting to get used to this new program, so it would be a good way to enhance it and to let people know about it. So, okay, thanks.
Councillor Vanden Rishi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Councillor Taylor. So is this program redundant to our service? Like, is there two services crossing over? Like we have our that we pay for everywhere else for garbage, and then this is a service on top of it at the same time?
No, this is all part of the anonymous dumping service that's provided countywide. That service has primarily been used by downtown Simcoe, the specific core area. Virtually the entirety of that budget line was used up for anonymous dumping in downtown Simcoe. The BIA has been providing a cheaper, faster service than what the county was providing. The service would still be provided countywide for anonymous dumping, which is a different piece than the $25 pickup. They're two separate items.
So if I can, Councillor Taylor, the distinction here between the county's program is it's only at select scheduled weeks in the month and times. So if you have somebody that's randomly dumped a couch on your lawn, it shouldn't sit there for 3 weeks. There's a little bit more of an urgency to it, hence the increased cost that has gone on in the past. But again, the motion is just that staff be directed to work with the BIA to present a figure to the budget committee in regards to a grant with the services. So I'm assuming we will still hear a little bit more back from staff at the budget.
That's fully the intention of my motion, is to have more of that supplemental, have more of that.
And they can provide some additional information to help you better understand that service. But again, it's more that the other service takes some time. You have to book an appointment. It's for scheduled occasions. I can even remember during my time as mayor, there was some couch I recall that had been sitting out on Norfolk Street for days on end, and there was frustrations with even how long that was taking to get out of there. So it's the expediency that you're paying for.
Yes.
Okay, that's good information. As long as there's not a duplication of services that costs more money, and at the end of the day, it's not a service provided for the other communities. So I want to make sure that it's equitable across the board.
Councillor Michelle, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You just explained what I was going to explain about the bulky item problem. It's a matter of timing. The bulky item pickup is a great system, but it does take place over often through the booking process. It can take up to maybe 2 weeks or possibly more for them to come and pick it up. And I think in the issue that Councillor Taylor is describing, timing is kind of critical. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Michelle. Anything further? All right, so again, that was moved by Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Rabbits. All those in favor? That was carried. And finally, any notices of motion today from council? Right, general announcements. Councillor Hoffman, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Through you to everybody who's listening at home, I just want to say that the town of Waterford in Ward 7 had the most fantastic weekend with Pumpkin Fest. It was a gigantic success, sorry. I would like to take this time to thank the Lions and Lioness of the Waterford clubs and every volunteer who took any part of the celebration. Everything went well. The fireworks, the parade, the vendors, the local beer tents. It was phenomenal. And looking forward to adding some of our other events that were not COVID friendly this year. And hopefully by next year we can add those back in. But it was a rousing success. I also just want to do a big shout out to the Waterford Heritage Trail Association. They had to bridge the gap to fund a bridge to assist with the Trail Association. and they have raised the $120,000 required, and the bridge is has been approved, and it's been purchased from a company in Kitchener, and it will be installed. And so that group is extremely independent and very resourceful, and they have met their criteria in terms of their fundraising, and didn't come to the county for a dime. So congratulations to them, and I look forward to seeing the addition of this bridge to the Waterford Heritage Trail. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Huffman. Paula, I see your hand is up.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to let everybody know that we have finally managed to get our announcement online for the consultation for the property standards bylaw. And we are holding 2 public consultations online on October 28th at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and November 1st at 6 o'clock. And that otherwise people are invited to provide comments electronically through an online form. Thank you.
Councillor Columbus, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Over the weekend, I had the privilege of attending the charter of the Delhi Kin Club. They have 27 new members, fairly youthful. They're very energized, ready to make great things happen for the well-being of Delhi community. There was a Kinsman Club in Delhi for many, many years that contributed to establishment of the Delhi Kinsman Pool. They purchased a good portion of the Zamboni that we have that's clearing the ice every week at the Delhi Arena, and they put signage up and all kinds of things. So they curtailed their activities 2.5 years ago. So it's great to see that we have another service club serving the community of Delhi, and they're hoping to join with Norfolk County on a number of community projects as they come along. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Columbus. Councillor Van Den Riche, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to say thank you to the staff that the arenas are up and running and things are going well. One concern is we're getting a lot of comments from older players who would prefer to see the showers in operation so that they can, in other communities, they are open, such as in Haldeman. So it would be nice if maybe staff could take a look at implementing that there could be time for them to allow to be showering. And as well as the bookings are going on, but there is a little bit of difficulty in some of that. Some people are saying they can't seem to get through. So hopefully that staff can get more assistance in being able to do that booking. So with that, I'd just like to say that the kids are very happy. The old timers are very happy. Everybody's happy to get back on the ice. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to let everyone know that the Roots to Roots Film Festival will be returning again this year. So October 23rd and 24th, the Strand Theatre will be highlighting a local filmmakers, 2 short films, as well as a TIFF feature. Tickets are $10. If you're interested in attending, email jcarroll, that's JCARROLL at quick.com to get your tickets and attend a great event in downtown Simcoe.
Okay. Councillor Hoffman, did you have something else again?
Yes, I did. I didn't want to be remiss and forget to offer our congratulations and best wishes to Councillor Martin on her nuptials this past weekend. So congratulations, Amy.
Oh, thank you very much.
Anything further from anyone else? Look at Al's hands. Okay, moving on then, I think we've got one item for closed session today. If I could have a mover and a seconder to enter into closed session at 5:19 p.m. to discuss the following matter: Ontario Land Tribunal decision, a verbal update from our solicitor pursuant to sections 239, 2E and F of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, as the subject matter pertains to litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and advice is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. Moved by Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Rabbits. All those in favor? And that is carried. And Teresa, did you want us, we'll just stay on this link and you'll move us into a room? Perfect.
Yes, just give me 1 second.
And Teresa, I'll get you to read the motion out for us.
You're on mute there, Teresa.
I sounded really good though. Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Vandendriessche, that the county solicitor be authorized to request for review related to the Ontario Land Tribunal matter related to 24 Lynn Street, Port Dover, for the public access to the water and the building design only.
Okay, all those in favor? That is carried. Finally, a motion on bylaw 2021-130 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of Norfolk County at this regular council meeting held on the 19th day of October 2021. Be approved, signed by the mayor and clerk, and affixed with the corporate seal. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Michele, seconded by Councillor Taylor. Thank you. All those in favor? That's carried. And finally, a motion to adjourn. Councillor Huffman, thanks, and Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? That is carried. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Good night, everybody.
You're still our good luck charm there, Al. 6 o'clock. Not bad.
Congratulations, Amy, again.